Yo, what's up guys? We're back with another video today, and in today's video we're going to be talking about UFC fighters who performed better outside the UFC. Now for this criteria, we're going to count not just like how they perform outside the UFC, like fighting wise, just in general, like financially, mental, all that, just how much better you have become outside the UFC. So with that being said, let's get into the first example. Alright, Francis Ngannou. Listen, I think we all know about this one. This is a very public falling out between him and the UFC. You could make an argument as far as his fighting career goes. He would have done better in the UFC, but overall, man, I mean, Francis did better. I honestly think he made the better call. Because I don't think he would have, besides the John Jones fight, which would have been massive, I think he made a better call leaving the UFC. Because for one, he made $40 to $30 million in both the Fury and Joshua fights. He arguably wins against Fury. In my opinion, he beat the heavyweight champion at that time, guys. I mean, I don't care what you say. In my opinion, he won that fight. And yeah, he got knocked out by Joshua, but still, it's boxing, so I can't count it as far as a career thing. He made because it's boxing, but he made $40-30 million, and then also comes back into MMA after the death of his son and gets a vicious TKO win against a dangerous heavyweight, one of the dangerous, most dangerous fighters outside the UFC as far as heavyweight goes. And it was nice seeing him getting that win. I don't think I think after that though, I don't think there's anything else for him. The fights he's gonna make are just not as big. Maybe if he does boxing again, because boxing is probably his best option in order to get more people watching his fights and all that. Because those two fights with Fury and Joshua, they were massive, man. They were massive. But yeah, that's really, I would say, that the best reasons for Francis Ngannou. Ryan Bader. If we just look at Ryan Bader's career in the UFC versus Bellator, it's night and day. Listen. I know being a champion in Bellator is not the same as being a champion in the UFC. We all know this. It's like a coughing baby versus a hydrogen bomb. Like that one meme you guys know about. But still, I would argue though he got more popular from Bellator than he did in UFC. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a young baby and I don't know much about what it was like when he was in the UFC. But I don't know. I don't know, man. The only thing that I can think of that he got popular of from the UFC was when DC was trashing him, and it was none of his fights. And it's, yeah, I don't know. There's not much else I could say besides he kind of made just a better call in Bellator, and he also just performed better. If you look at the wins, look at the wins that he has in the UFC versus in Bellator. I know they're old fighters, don't get me wrong. He KO'd Fedor and Emelianenko, and Fedor was 45 at that time. It's not the craziest thing. But still, just having those wins, those names in your resume is crazy, man. It is crazy. All right, now we have Chris Moitiano. Now for those who don't know, he was the guy who got beaten up by Sean O'Malley in his UFC debut, and then lost in his second fight. He then gets cut, and then goes on a 5-fight winning streak outside the UFC. And they are all by finishes. Why am I saying this when you guys can clearly see it on screen? But it's really impressive, man. to go on those like two fight losing streak and in ways that are just not good, man. I mean, getting like beaten up badly by Sean O'Malley is demoralizing, and then getting TKO'd in your next fight is also demoralizing. And then going from that to going on a 5-fight winning streak, all by finish, is really impressive. I hopefully he signs back into UFC, man, because it would just be a great story for him, man. I don't know. All right, now we have Cris Cyborg. Most of her career, though, to be honest, was not even from the UFC. Like most of it was from either Strikeforce or Invicta FC or Bellator. And then you have UFC, which took a decent chunk of her career. But I feel like more people know her. The only thing that people remember from her, as far as like the people who I talk to, is that she lost to Amanda Nunes. But when they talk about her, like I've asked some people, how did you find out about her? It was from like Strikeforce, Bellator, but they never mentioned the UFC, which was very interesting. So they're probably a hardcore MMA fan. No, I'm joking. But no, I mean, there's look at her wins. Like most of her wins and like her legacy is pretty much outside the UFC. Her best win, her only like really good win in the UFC is Holly Holm. And it's, I mean, yeah, there's like, it's just one of those things, man. It's just one of those things with some of these fighters where you just remember them not by the UFC. We're gonna get into an example of one of those fighters. But yeah, I kind of lost track of what I was saying, guys. But I mean, yeah, that's really it. All right, now we have Mike Perry, and for Mike Perry, he's probably my favorite one out of all these guys because he was a not so great fighter in the UFC. I mean, just look at his record. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 losses and 7 losses and 7 wins. Not great at all. Could never beat like the top guys, besides like Paul Felder, which is actually a pretty solid win to actually have. But that was it, really. And then he gets cut. I think, I don't exactly remember. I think it was cut or he left. But he goes to bare knuckle and becomes a giant star actually from there. He became a bigger star in bare knuckle than he did in UFC, and not only that, he literally built bare knuckle. Like he brought bare knuckle into the big scene. I mean, he fought so many legends from bare knuckle, and he looked so good in them. Michael Venom Page, Luke Rockhold, Eddie Alvarez. Like these are some really, really good like wins to have. I know they're from a different like sport basically, but still, man, having wins from those guys, like those legends, that's a really impressive thing, man. It really is impressive, man. So, and he's also just made millions off of bare knuckle. Not counting the Jake Paul fight, because he probably made more there. But I mean, if we're just looking at bare knuckle, it's really just impressive, man. It really is. To go from a mid-UFC fighter to become a genuine star in bare knuckle, man. I mean, it's really something else. All right, now we have Fedor Emelianenko. Arguably, like, I would say the second most known one besides Francis. His whole career is built upon the fact that he was one of the, if not the greatest fighter to never fight in the UFC. Never compete in the UFC, throughout his whole career. He competed in Pride, competed in Ring, Bellator, Strikeforce, basically every single like big promotion, literally except for the UFC. The closest we'll ever get to him being the UFC is him in UFC 5. That's literally it, guys. And like. He doesn't need to be in the UFC though to be remembered. He'll be remembered as being just a scary dude, man. for being like one of the best, if not one of the greatest fighters of all time. And he never competed in the UFC, man. I mean, that's something just crazy to think. Because when you think of some of the greatest fighters, they're all from the UFC. John Jones, GSP, Demetrius Johnson, Khabib, Volk. But Fedor stands out among all of them because he never competed in the UFC. He never did that. Like, and he's like, it's just crazy, man. It is really something impressive and just shows how great Fedor Emelianenko was as a fighter. But guys, that is it for me, for some of the fighters who performed better outside of UFC. I know Fedor was kind of like a cheap one because he never actually competed in the UFC, but I just thought I'd include him because who cares? I mean, he's a good example. He fits perfectly with all these other fighters. I mean, come on, guys, come on. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me, guys. I will see you in the next video.